I always tell my stories from the angle of self, meaning that when telling the story, I assume the gender of the owner of the story. The horror story on Landlord is about two men, not a lady and a guy. Two men. He was the one selling the thrift wares that was abused by his own male cousins when he was little. More on the homosexual part. If you've noticed, sometimes I throw in brief stories of individuals too, like more on the short tail before we continue with the other main one, the landlord. So enjoy this one. I am currently based in the US and my other two siblings in Canada. We lost our only son to pneumonia at a very tender age, which resurrected the issues between my parents. My mom would always tell us about her strange dreams, which led to her quitting the marriage halfway. From one prayer house to another, we actually saw my mom as the cause of our family always having issues. Fast forward to my late stage of mid-40s, I was called home by our family doctor. My mom was still in Nigeria, but she wasn't the one doing the calling. I tried reaching out to my other sisters and they also told me they got the same call, that we should come back home before the end of the year. This was early November last year. After the whole persuasion, we all agreed to come home. I actually came into Nigeria before them. When I got to my family house, my doctor was not there, meaning my family doctor wasn't there. It was just my dad and a helper. I came into the living room. My dad was seated on his special chair, looking towards the door, as though he was seeing someone standing there. His eye was focused on the door. He knew I was in the parlor, but he didn't look at me. When I tried talking to him, the only thing he muttered was, "I will wait for the rest." Fast forward again when we were complete. Meanwhile, I didn't even take my things upstairs. My mom arrived that evening along with my other sisters. Immediately, my mom stepped into the living room with the family doctor. Remember, my other siblings arrived an hour before them, but they acted nonchalant, as though they were already updated on my father's recent state. While still in that position, looking towards the door of the living room, sometimes he would murmur some words as though he was talking to someone there, but we could not see the person. So now, to the stage whereby my mom and the doctor came into the parlor, it was as though he became possessed by something. And then this was his confession. He spoke without breathing in between. Igbo people call it Igba Ashisha. Igba Ashisha, in layman terms, could be said to be when someone who was known for atrocities or ascetic or terror in the land decides or is about to die, they would not be able to pass over to the other side without confessing everything they had done in secret and in open while they were living. Now, the difference between this Ashisha and normal asking for forgiveness is that normal asking for forgiveness is whereby maybe you're filled with guilt or you've decided to turn a new leaf. That is all different. Ashisha is whereby you are compelled by a higher force to confess, to say things, evil things you've done. I believe people are feeling my cracked voice. Under every circumstances, I will always share these stories. Hey, it's raining some of you to come to my house and bring me out. Mind you, we never ever took my dad to be on the negative side of life. We never saw him as ascetic and we never ever termed him spiritually negative. The family doctor advised us not to say anything. That even while he was treating my dad kept telling him to call his entire family. He had things to say to them. Deep down, he felt maybe he wanted to say his goodbyes, not knowing it was much more horrible. And that was what led to us all coming back to the family house, where he initially stayed alone with his helpers. I am responsible for you and your sisters not settling down till this date. I saw that your destinies were so bright and I decided to have them all to myself, knowing fully well that whomever you guys would marry would take over from me and everything good luck would shift to him. I am the strange man you would always see in your dreams, and I would watch you pray against the spiritual entity you felt was married to you. Now, before I continue, as a single lady, I wasn't obese, as to say that the reason men didn't approach me was because I was fat. My mates dated prestigious men, while I had no one to myself. He confessed to a lot of things, but I am here to only concentrate towards my own side. Each word he said from his mouth, he would look towards the door as though the person at the door wanted to take his life. He also confessed to taking our little brother when he was much tender, and that was what led to the spike in his money flow. We can all attest to the chemistry between a dad and his first daughter or daughters in general. Yes, that chemistry, and due to the chemistry, I would tell my father everything, from the challenges, the difficulties, and also the good happenings in my life. He would often ask me if I was in any relationship, and I would deny, thinking maybe the usual African parent accent, not knowing he had other plans in his mind. Everything my father said, under the control of whatever it was, gave me a much clearer view on every complaint my mom would say to us. It was when I graduated with first class that an aunt of mine decided to help me further abroad against the will of my father. My father wanted me always close to him, and I blamed it on the father's love for a child. Indeed, my auntie got a go-ahead order from my mom, but I processed everything behind my father, knowing fully well how clingy he was to me. The next year, I left Nigeria. I got a call from my mom that my auntie died in her sleep. My father confessed to being the one who caged her spirit in his vault until her physical body was buried, thereby leaving her to wander around. I would also remember when I would have dreams of her trying to tell me something, but the more she moved her mouth, the more I would be unable to understand her or even hear her. My father also confessed to being the reason my younger sister carried her pregnancy for 2 years, all because she got into a relationship he told her not to, and thinking getting pregnant would compel him to give her hand out to marriage. It only ended up costing her and her husband-to-be their lives. He confessed to getting rid of so many people that claimed were my mom's friends. He also confessed to taking the lives of few of my classmates who would come over regularly to spend the night. His excuse was that he didn't want anyone to find out the truth about his true reality. Due to my mother's prayers, covering, and us trying our best to liberate ourselves from whatever it was, not knowing the enemy was within, he would take the life of anyone trying to get close to us in order to replace the one they asked him to get, which was us, his blood. We would go for different counseling and different church programs, and the highest kick was when I made the attempt to leave the house totally, making it so difficult for him to get access to me, thereby leading to the death of my auntie. He confessed to so many deaths that we would never have attributed it to him in any way. And each person he would take, he is not required to be present when the body is about to be laid to rest. That explained the sudden travel the day before my brother died.